This episode of RSR is brought to you by iZotope, Native Instruments, SAE Institute, Atom Audio, Spectra 1964, Grace Design, and Picker. These are tools that I use every day in my studio, from the Spectra 1964 STX 600 and Native Instruments Complete 15 to iZotope Ozone and RX, Atom Audio monitoring and headphones, and the central hub for my studio, the Grace Design M701 audio interface. Check out my studio profile on the Picker app on iPhone or Android and follow the sponsor links in the show notes. Grab my free mixing course at mixmasterbundle.com and remember to like this video and subscribe on YouTube because it's a great way to help support this show. Now, get ready to rock.
I am an SM57 on the bass cabinet, man. I like it because there's a growl situation, the mid-range. I'm a big fan of like mid-range. For me, what I don't want on a bass cabinet is like a Beta 52 or somewhere like in a live situation where they put on like a bass drum mic on the bass cabinet.
Right.
What's going on? I like how this 57 is really mid-range heavy. And then I also feel like the proximity effect is fine. It's bass. Well, I'm like,
so it brings up the lows.
Yeah. It's never like, oh, it's so thin sounding. It's like, no way. It's like so I'm a huge proponent of have you heard of that one? The Shure SM57? Have you ever?
Yeah. Welcome to Recording Studio Rockstars. I'm Lid Shaw, and this is the podcast created to help you become a rock star of the recording studio. Rock stars, if you want your mixes and masters to translate everywhere, iZotope Ozone 12 gives you the tools to finish with confidence. The new bass control helps you see and balance your low end and punch. Unlimiter brings back life to overcompressed tracks, and Stem EQ lets you rebalance vocals, drums, or bass using only the stereo mix file. And when it's time to get loud, Ozone's new IRC Maximizer gives powerful, clean masters without distortion. Go to iZotope.com and use the code ROCK10 for 10% off. Howdy, Rockstars. It's your host, Lid Shaw, and welcome back to Recording Studio Rockstars, bringing you into the studio to learn from recording professionals so that you can make your best record ever and be a rock star of the studio yourself. My guest today is Travis Harrison, a drummer, mixer, recording engineer, and producer, best known for his work with Guided by Voices, Built to Spill, The Men, Dope Body, and many more. Travis launched his career in the early 2000s after graduating from Columbia University, founding Serious Business Music, his longtime recording studio now based in Dumbo, Brooklyn. Through the New York underground rock scene, he built a name for himself not only as a talented engineer and producer, but also as a drummer, performing in events like Boredom's 77 Boa Drum and collaborating with artists such as Fred Armisen, OK Go, and members of Travis. Between 2010 and 2020, Travis recorded and mixed over 1,100 live in studio sessions for Breakthrough Radio, and in 2014, he mixed Built to Spill's final Warner Brothers LP, Untethered Moon. Since 2016, his ongoing work with Robert Pollard and Guided by Voices has drawn worldwide attention with fans and critics alike, calling it a new golden age for the band and some of their best music yet. Travis continues his production work from Serious Business Music in Brooklyn, where he lives in Manhattan with his wife and 2 daughters. Please welcome Travis Harrison to Recording Studio Rockstars. Travis,
wow.
Dude.
Hey.
You ready to rock, man?
I am. Wow, that was wild. How you doing?
Yeah, is it fun to hear your bio read back to you?
By you, it is. Yeah, I like it.
All right, man. Well, you've done a lot of cool shit, man. You're kind of a big deal.
Thank you.
I mean,
please.
I really appreciate that you connected with me, and I've always wanted to, do an episode about Guided by Voices and Built to Spill, and and then so that caught my attention initially, of course, and going through your discography and really listening to your music, I'm like, holy shit, this is good. So I'm really excited to have you here on the show, man.
That's great. Thanks so much for having me. This is a treat.
Yeah. It got me thinking about so many things. So why don't we just begin by talking about, give us a little bit of the backstory on who you are. I gave you that quick overview, but, tell us in your own words about getting interested in music, coming out of school. Was that Columbia in New York? Columbia University?
Yeah. I mean, I started playing drums when I was about 11 years old. My uncle had a drum set in his basement, and I fell into it, and I was instantly completely addicted to music, records, and I was just, it was over as soon as I was on those drums. And then I always wanted to have a band. I met guys in high school. We made a band. We tried. But it wasn't until after college where I took the reins of one of our band's projects in terms of self-recording it, and I just got bitten by the bug. And then one of my buddies from college, Andy Ross, who's now in the band OK Go, he had a computer and had Pro Tools on it, and he's a computer guy. He had Pro Tools and all the crack plugins, and this is like, I guess, 2002. But before this, I had only dabbled with, 4-track. We had a Roland 1680. I had a little bit of a mentor-y relationship with a gentleman who had mixed my high school band's recordings, who I went on to have a more serious mentor-y relationship with. And I'll shout him out, the late, great Benji King, who played keyboards in Scandal. Goodbye to you.
Right on.
But Benji was an amazing guy, and he kind of got me really interested in music, in the production and engineering side of it he had a little studio in his apartment, and he mixed our home recording things. So, and Andy had, who I mentioned before from OK Go, he had, like I said, Pro Tools at that moment. And it was just like, if you could take the time to learn it a little bit, you kind of had this limitless canvas it seemed like the first time for me. So I kind of joined.
And the funny thing is, when you talk about that era where it's all the crack plugins, I know, maybe and I know, but others might not be aware that we're still talking OS 9. That's right before the change to OS 10, I think.
Totally. Yeah. And I had a 001 was the interface.
Yeah.
Digi 001.
That's what I got rolling on too. So helpful.
Yeah, but right out of the gate, Andy was like, "Let's put an ad in the paper." I was like, "Really? Okay." And we put an ad.
Was he the business school student?
He was a computer guy. No, he wasn't really a business school guy. He just had the, just the tenacity to kind of like, why not? I don't know. Serious business,
right? You guys are in New York. You're in Dumbo, dude. It's chutzpah.
Well, back in the early days, I was in this little spot. I'm from Long Island. I grew up out in Suffolk County in Bayport, Blue Point, and small town. And so after college, Andy was a buddy of mine from college, and he came and would sleep on my mom's couch, and we would go to this little shack that we had, and we would make music and stuff. So it was then that I started getting into it, and we started having the audacity to see if anybody would come and record with us. And that happened. And, the first few recordings were, they're really cool people. I wish I could redo them now, but we just got into it. And then we got a little spot in Long Island City, started recording our own band, the Unsacred Hearts, and a bunch of other bands started coming, and we moved into another spot that was bigger.
And so this is you playing drums at that point too, right?
I was playing drums. Yeah, I was playing drums, and my main, it was back in the era where I probably was, just playing in 4 or 5 bands and running around and doing a lot of rehearsals and whatever.
Yeah, I'm trying to picture it. So like, listening to your discography, do you feel like a lot of the drums that you record, that's sort of the direction you were playing too, or is it very different? How do you think about it?
I can't help but have it be my foundational, it's where my attention goes foundationally. When I'm listening, I can't help it. Like if I'm listening to Bob Dylan Desire, I'm checking out those wacky drums.
I think it's great. I mean, I think it helps distinguish different recordings, and it really does kind of set a sonic foundation for what the other instruments tonally might want to do also.
Yeah, so when I first started recording, the idea of being able to record a drum set and manipulate the way that it's perceived was really, that was exciting. It was always something that I would, zero in on, just like listening. But I haven't figured out how to do it yet. It's always a process, and it's always involves other people and a space,
Yeah.
And time.
Drums are really the most studio of instruments.
Yeah, and ironically, yeah, I mean, yeah, it's true. It
Without
is true.
bass amps.
Yeah. It's hard. I mean, you can do drums, like a drum set, well, not in a studio with one microphone, as you and I both know. There's a lot of parameters that go with that to be able to do that. You can't show up in a rehearsal room, that's tiny rehearsal room, and record and with everybody in the room, and then record the drums with one mic and have it be good to go. No good.
Right.
But that, I don't know.
Well, so all right, so you were telling a great story. So you and Andy started your studio and got that thing rolling.
Yeah, and we wound up, our first space was in, I guess you'd call it Bushwick, a pretty legendary building, 538 Johnson Avenue in Bushwick. The reason I say it's legendary is there's a website dedicated to the whole history of it, and there were some really rad punk shows there, or maybe more like hardcore or like thrash metal. There's the band Municipal Waste played there. We had this big space, man. At the time, the rent was like $1,800 a month, and we had no idea how we were going to come up with that. This is like 2005. We were like, that is, what are we doing? It was a huge risk, but it was actually a built-out studio. We found it on Craigslist, and they advertised it as soundproof built-out studio. So we were like, hell yeah, and we got in there, and it was one of those. It was a huge 18-foot ceilings, beautiful live room, probably about like, I don't know, maybe just thinking back, maybe like 500 square feet live room that was like lofted, whatever. It was cool. Like, I don't want to describe the whole thing. It had a booth. It had what do they call the ceiling that floats down, on a pulley system? You've seen that?
The cloud. Oh yeah, yes. like the drumbrella.
Yes, so cool. So that we were like, oh my God, this is the best situation. And we moved in. We immediately started doubling our efforts of advertising, like Craigslist and all the people that we were playing shows with or whatever. And as soon as we put a floor tom in that room, we got notes under the door. This is ridiculously loud. You can't do this. We were getting complaints and phone calls. So that was my first experience with the need for professional soundproofing, which was very expensive. And
right, because you needed to make sure the sound of the bands didn't leave your studio to go to the neighbors.
But we were so pissed at the landlord because we were like, you guys advertised it as soundproof recording studio. I think we tried to badger them to give us some sort of a deal or whatever, but we went through the process. We had a friend. We got plans made by a pro, and then Al Firestein at Acoustalog. And but then we had a friend come in and build the false walls, and we did it. We made it happen, and we had 3 good years there. But Andy left after year 1 because he was in love with his now wife, and he went to be with her in LA. Then he joined OK Go. So he was off to a great career and a beautiful life. And I was going to try and keep doing it on my own. And so eventually I moved to a spot in 2007. I moved to a spot in Soho in Manhattan, which was way too expensive. It was very nice, but it was way too expensive. I was way above I was taking a shot. See if this could. And I still was learning my craft. I had never interned in a studio. I read tape op, and had I had good experience, with real bands coming in. I'm recording bands, but I was not,
You didn't even have Recording Studio Rockstars yet.
It wasn't even there yet, dude. I would have learned so much. I gave it a shot. I gave it a go, and same thing happened. Moved in and hit a floor tom, and basically had the cops coming. So I had to do the same thing again. Man. And now I was in an office building in Manhattan, and it was, again, fell for the same thing. It was advertised as soundproof recording studio. So yeah, cool. And actually, in previous years, subsequent years, I met the designer of this studio, and it was for a cartoon animation company called Funny Garbage, and the guy, and they were doing like voiceover, and they were doing, music for film and stuff. They were not recording rock bands. Right. So I had to float the floor in luckily I was on the corner there was nobody above me. I was on the top floor, but I had to float the floor. It was crazy. So,
and it's like, what is this, like some New York requirement where you have to sign a lease before you can find out if it's soundproofed or not?
Yes. I think what wound up happening was I went in there and maybe gave it a shot. Maybe I hit a drum or something. But it's once you put a band in a space in a building like that,
starts resonating the walls, and plus you're turning bands up. You got to turning bands up nice and loud too, right?
1,000%. So we floated the floor with like these industrial strength springs. We had the same acoustic consultant come back and tell us what to do, and we did it. And then I spent 7 years there. Took my first opportunity to get out and moved into the space in Dumbo, and I've been here since 2014. And
that's awesome.
Yeah, and the whole around 2010, from 2010 to 2020, I got a job working as you mentioned in the bio. It was like recording live in the studio, live performances for this now defunct a content creation company called Breakthrough Radio. It started back in the days of like internet radio, but as that term became, obsolete, it just started being called BTR, and they started doing basically like video podcasts and stuff in 2010, and it had very little viewership.
Exactly when it happened to me too. Maybe like 2012, but it was basically that time. You're talking about like the era of like Spreaker radio and these internet kind of.
But
radio.
I was recording live. We would do 3-hour sessions, and over my whole 10 years with them, I did probably 12 or 1,300 of these, maybe more.
Yeah.
3-hour session. We'd have to get an interview with the host of the show, like a 15, 20-minute interview with the band at some point, and get them in. They got to play 5 songs.
Yeah.
So,
are you mixing it at the same time, or are you just capturing
when I first got the gig, they were like, "You do a live mix." I was like, "Do I have to?" Is it broadcast live? I said, "No." I said, "There you go. It will not be a live mix." And so I didn't do them live mixes because it was too chaotic. How could it would sound like shit. I'm sorry, pardon my French, but like there was no way I was going to be able to make that happen. Boy, did I learn so much. We had every kind of band come in here in my previous space as well. Small room. Learn so fast what microphones are really all about. You learn, and you learn how to, every turd you could polish was polished, but also, and my turds, my own, my screw ups that shouldn't have been in that part of the room, but we'll make it work or whatever. It was an amazing learning experience, and really getting to touch all of these recordings of these bands that went on to do incredible, huge things.
And this is all in one room together, the band playing, right? Kind of like my
band all in one room.
Studio.
Yeah, I went through different periods of it where I would try to, when I first started doing it, I had a booth, and I would try to ISO drums in the booth. And that was good for getting live vocals on SM7s, which is what I was trying to do at the beginning. Because the first time I put SM7s up for vocals, these just badass vocal sounds. And then as soon as a drum got hit, it was like, because this little 4 inches here, or whatever this little 2 inches, or whatever this is, that's the world in a live recording. You know what I mean?
Like that is. I learned that's your starting sound. Then you add the other instruments, right?
Yeah, I immediately had to ditch the SM7s because there's no way I could get So they became SM57s. Then you can get a vocal sound in a room with drums. You got to get the vocalist.
Oh, I don't even know if I ever tried that, man. I should have done that.
The most, you got to do 57s. You got to do, I recently have learned of the, through my work in live sound with GBV, somebody recommended the 7, which is, hypercardioid. And that thing's amazing for this. But like, you can't, like, if you put a vocal mic up in a room with a blaring band, my favorite vocal mic is the SM7, but it ain't going to work because you can't get close enough on it.
Right. Right. That makes sense. You're a little far from the diaphragm.
And it's all bleed, man. And it was just like crazy. I was like, and so even other I was trying to use big fancy dynamic mics, which are cool, like the 441 worked pretty well, to tell you the truth. RE20 worked pretty well. But really what worked way better was an SM57. And then later on I got into other like.
That's cool. So yeah. So first lesson is just don't even fuck with a condenser mic unless it's, unless everybody's so quiet in the room or it's acoustic.
Or you have a big room, right? Like if you're in Abbey Road, go for it, dude. You got gobos and shit and like that. Yeah, do it.
Dreaming of a career in audio or the entertainment business? SAE Institute Nashville, in the heart of Music Row, offers hands-on programs where you'll learn on professional-grade gear with industry pros, learning through real projects, not just lectures. Explore studio production, live sound, audio for film, and a whole lot more. Or take the entertainment business program to learn about contracts, promotion, and more. With diploma, associate, and bachelor's programs, there's a path for you. Book a tour today at nashville.sae.edu or call 615-244-5848. But you also don't get that room filling up with the band sound in a big space, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
That
I
don't want to get ahead of myself, but I feel like that's a part of what's so cool about the sounds you've been getting and the records you've been making
recently is in this space. Yeah.
Yeah. I've been listening to them and thinking, shit, man, this dude has figured out how to just get that whole room involved. And
and each
I'm
record
just excited
is different.
to talk about it. So
sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ask away.
I will, but keep telling the stories because these are great. I did that as I said. I did the Bonnaroo Hay Bale studio. That was my version of your in studio live thing, and it was a killer learning experience. And I was only doing it for 4 days a year, very intensively. Record 100+ songs or whatever, and I would actually mix it live because we didn't have time to do remixes. And I'm kind of glad I did. And you're right that. They're never perfect, but there's a thing that can happen too, because there's like a feedback to the headphones and what the band's hearing as well.
100%.
But just like your ability to learn all these things by doing recordings really fast in those situations is really, really valuable.
So it's become a big part of my, my game is that I'm super fast. And when a band comes in, I have them up and doing takes in an hour.
That's great.
They just have everything set up. I never tear down. So, if you're going to come in and use my house drums, which 99% of my records have, but you could bring your own. Whatever, but use these while I'll have you going in an hour. And I have just like a default setup. And I feel like when you take all the friction out of the recording process, it instantly puts people at ease and makes it about what they're doing and not about what you're doing. And the last thing you want them to do is focus on what you're doing, because then, all right, you're in the hot seat. You don't want to be in the hot seat. You don't want to be patching patch cables. Like that's like one of my big mantras. Like never let them see your butt crack. Never let them see you hunched over the patch bay, unless sometimes you have to, or hunched over your snake or dealing with your stuff. It always happens. Of course, we have to deal with stuff, but like you cannot have a band show up to an empty studio. I don't know who does that. If there's engineers out there who do that.
I used to do that until I finally learned my lesson. I'm like, why am I doing this? Why don't I just leave everything set up? And now I've got session flows feel better. But there's caveats, right? Like, so sometimes when you're pre-set up, then you're like, well, if I'm going to make a big change or if we're going to do something very different, then it kind of throws me off a little bit.
Totally. I'm a big proponent of the preparation. So
yeah,
if you know that the band is going to fit into your default, then you're good. In my case, it's like a whole lot of 2 guitars, bass, and drums. That's basically my default.
Yeah.
This is my style that I'm mostly working on. But if you're in Nashville and you're doing country music all the time and you're a mixer or something and you have a template, they're going to have their default. That's going to have whatever, acoustic guitar, or whatever, fiddle.
Yeah.
Metal has their own thing. But if you're focusing on a genre, it can be easier to do that. But
to that point, can I add something, Travis?
Yeah.
To that point, which I think is really important that you're hitting on, and even I thought about this listening to your music, is for those listening who are potentially interested in a genre, I would say a takeaway, and I'd be curious about your response, but is like, before you even get started, really like hardcore consider where you choose to live. Like, you're gonna have to live in a place that's where that genre of music lives. So like,
I'm in New York City.
Come to Nashville if you want to do Americana and country. And there's a lot more 100%. Than that going on here too. But I would imagine it's maybe tougher for me to find as many, of the kind of bands that you've been recording here in Nashville, and it's maybe easier to find that in New York. But maybe not. Maybe I'm just saying
for sure
because I listen to your discography.
Yeah, there is an Americana scene here, but likewise, it would be, it's a little harder to make that your niche. Although there probably is some, New York's got everything, so there probably are people that they're rocking it here, and I probably know some of them. But I forgot exactly where we were going with that, but I guess I was talking about the breakthrough radio experience and just working fast, and
and you're set up and having to be prepared for sessions.
Right. And did you ever interview Chris Shaw?
He's great.
Okay.
Yeah.
I probably have heard your interviews with him, but him talking about working with Bob Dylan on for the Love and Theft album. Did you do that interview? Or did you talk about that? I
think so. I don't remember specifically about that.
That's this.
Being, the conversation on the record, but yeah.
But that's this concept, like it's Bob Dylan, and he doesn't suffer fools, and like he's there to be Bob Dylan. He's going to be
his music,
cut. Yeah, he's going to be cutting it totally live, and he doesn't want to be watching you mess around with any of that. Like, he doesn't even believe in mixing, So when you're dealing with like
there
artists,
to be Bob Dylan in your studio. He's just there to be Bob Dylan.
Yeah, and like even if you have like some local band come in, you gotta like approach it like even if you don't even know who they are, you gotta approach it like somebody in the band and thinks they're an artist or hopefully is one, and like they just want to get down to what they're doing, They don't want to like worry about your vibe, your like desire to capture a really good like point on the kick drum for 45 minutes. That's just, I always would have bands that I would work with tell me like horror stories. Oh, the last guy we worked with was like, had us doing this and that. And, our project got done late. And it's like, oh, cool. Well, we're going to get this done early. We're going to be doing overdubs tonight.
That's awesome. What does a day look like for you in the studio usually at this point?
I usually I like to call it for 11 a.m. when the band comes, but I'll be here way before that. And if I have everything like set up, if I'm tracking a live band, like that's kind of what we've been talking about so far. But mix days are obviously different, and I do a lot of them, most of them by myself. And an overdub setup is different, vocals different, but on a live band day, when I just want to have it like super set up for them when they come. And, the first couple of hours is going to be your standard getting everybody in their positions, just getting everybody's sound on their instruments and their comfort level in play.
So now it's around 1:00. And do you guys, carve in lunch, or do you just sort of let everybody fend for themselves with that?
The band can.
You're a don't eat during the day thing?
I actually, yeah, like I don't. I'll bring something or whatever, but like they're in this is a more recent thing with the lunch part of it, but like I won't leave with the band if they're gonna go out and get something, unless we're like old buddies, or but if it's like, I'm there at work, I'll let them have their time so they can go and do what they got to do, and I'll use that time to do what I got to do, whether it's grab a bite or deal with what we've been recording a little bit, set up for the next thing, whatever that's going to be. But typically I'll have them doing takes by 11 o'clock. I mean, by like 1 o'clock or earlier. And then however many, then it's all up to the band, right? Like, what do they want to do? Are they a punk band who's got 18 songs in their set and they just want to run through it? Cool. Mm-hmm. That's fun. Is it a band that is just looking to, they're cutting the songs live, but they're really focusing on drums and bass, and then they're going to overdub everything else later? Cool. Whatever. Mm-hmm. But I do like to always start from as live as I can, unless the band is like, no, I don't do that, or we don't do that. Or, I've had bands with drummers who are just like, no, the way we record is this way, and the drummer just goes into the room by themselves and just like plays it from their head, and lays down the drum track. I've worked with several people who do that, like Prince. I haven't worked with Prince, right. but and that's cool too, but you got to just roll with whatever. I always feel like you got to just roll with whatever they want to do. You can't be imposing your thing on them, No, the way we do it here is, first thing we're going to do is determine the tempo of each song and get the click going. If they want click, they're going to get it, I'm
right, and then
I'm
you're
prepared.
Ready.
I'm prepared.
Yeah.
But if they don't want click, I'm not going to force it on them. That's a disaster,
Yep, totally, man. And well, sometimes I get bands in and they think they're supposed to do click because they're in the studio now, and I'm like, if you haven't played a click normally, we don't need to introduce it, guys.
That's it. It's cool to let it be what it is, and also like I like music that is not, like my record collection is not filled with contemporary, professionally produced singer-songwriter and pop rock acts. You know what I mean? Like, I don't need to hear perfect stuff, And so I actually enjoy the wildness of musicians who are not like super trained. Like, I really like that. Like, that energy to me is very appealing, and I also love people who rip. Every engineer loves people who rip. Like, please. It makes your whole life so much easier when people who are great musicians. Don't get me wrong.
Well, that's what I was going to say about listening to your discography, is like, there's a wildness, but it's a well rehearsed, or it's a wildness where the musicians and the bands really know themselves.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, hopefully. But isn't it always great though to just like record a musician who's so good you don't have to do anything and they sound great?
Yeah,
and that's that's the dream. But the reality though, like that's like the dream when you read an interview in like Mix magazine and the guy is talking about recording David Bowie or something. You're like, yeah. But like in reality, on the more like recording studio rock star side of the equation, the reality is you record all kinds of different artists and musicians, and you got to have a strategy in place and techniques and things in place to get the most out of them, but without having to like do weird emotional labor of like breaking balls and stuff. Like, I don't want to do that, like, listen, let me give you a lesson on how to play. Like, it's the last thing I ever want to do, that's definitely not my personality. So I just like to capture and just have ways of making the sound be exciting somehow.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit, about the way that you capture stuff. So I see a tape machine behind you. I've heard you mention Pro Tools. You got vinyl records lining the walls. And then from some of the photos, It looked to me like you get a lot of bang from a single room setup for the band at times. Tell us about setting up for a tracking session. Do things live together? Do they get isolated?
I could go
Does it
either
go
way.
to tape? Does it go to digital? How do you handle all that?
Those two things you mentioned are usually the two questions that are handled in introductory phone call or like email exchange or something. Tape or no tape is dependent on the artist. It's more labor. It's more time. It's more steps. So I am not going to push it into a situation where it's not being called for, but I have in the past. But it's cool to use. But when I use it, it's really as a piece of gear that is helping me impart a sound that is going into Pro Tools. I'm not mixing analog.
Okay. And then how much of your discography do you think that I'm hearing that did involve tape? I'll even just pull it up. So
I would say
you can glance at it if you want.
I would say probably maybe 50%. Yeah, I would say probably 50%. Yeah, just like looking at that, like, yeah, like with the Guided by Voices stuff that I do, I'd say about 50% of that had tape involved in some way or another. The Men, 100% of their records are on tape, and this band Rochambeau that I was like, they need to be on tape. Shop Talk, we cut that on tape. Tape. Free to Kill, no tape, but it could have been on tape. Yeah, and then Built to Spill, I wasn't involved, but that was tracked on tape. But yeah, I guess a lot of this stuff, the initial stage, I do use the machine. Also because a lot of the stuff that I'm gonna put on that playlist is like, I'm just into more like grimier, noisier stuff. So like if it's a band that's like a garagey band, I'm just gonna be like, you guys want to hit the tape machine? Like, I don't know. If you want to,
how do you do it?
How,
what's your workflow when you use tape? You're still going to end up in digital, right?
So I have a newer workflow that I've been using that I feel like I finally got it down. Forever, the way I did it was I would just I have a Soundcraft Ghost. It's not like cool. Like I don't use the mic pre's on it, but
that's pretty cool. That's what Roger Mudno has here.
Yeah, I want to get rid of it so bad, but like, But anyway, I've had this tape machine for 20 years, so it's hard patched to the Ghost, so the outputs. So yeah. I would track like it's like pretending like it's like 1979 and I'm cool and I'm like got all my fingers on the faders like fucking Tom Dowd. But it's fun, but then I can't commit to the final mix on the analog mix usually because I tried when I first had the machine around, but very rarely are bands able to commit the kind of time and focus and budget necessary to like deal with revisions or whatever that are gonna, and like I also, me not coming from that I'm still kind of figuring out how I'm working in years past when I'm trying to mix outside of the box. So I basically now have the tape machine, all the inputs of the tape machine routed into an in-the-box session. In the box, baby. I'm monitoring through two outputs. And
nice.
In the past, I had, and this is just the past few years I've been doing it this way, but it has completely unlocked productivity with the tape machine because I used to have this migration period, I would call it. I make up all these words for these things because I don't know what I'm doing, but I would call it the migration period, which is when I would be like, okay, we just had this awesome tracking session. We were like on tape all day. Yeah. And then we're going to get together to do vocals and overdubs and mix in the computer and all the mojo's gone. It's like all my vibe is gone. Oh, the thing that I had all day, like I was Tom Dowding it with my fingers and like, yeah, look at all this. I lost all that. So, and then there would be this period where I try to get the juice back and it was just some time waste. And I would be like eating all that. So now that I've got the tape machine kind of just like routed into my whole like mix template and the whole way that I operate, which is way more like Andrew Sheps, you know, then old school, you know. Once that's cooking, then it's just like, oh, cool. I'm just like playing back the tape through when I'm doing a playback. Playing it back. I'm recording the post tape, you know, audio into the session, and I'm good to go. And then now it's just the same. I might have, and I'm also recording redundant. Like when I'm actually tracking, I will roll Pro Tools as well. And it's not set up with this machine. It's not set up where it's like the repro and the sync where like I can get it to record simultaneously. If I can do that with this machine, you're gonna have to tell me how to do it. But I've never done it like that. I've always just kind of like recorded to the machine and then dump it in. So I just have it set up so the dump happens, you know, when we're listening to playbacks or whatever. And I never have to worry about now this migration period anymore, where it's just like, boom, I'm cooking up immediately.
Rockstars, if you want fresh song ideas, Complete 15 from Native Instruments has the tools to kickstart your creativity. With Contact 8's Chords tool, you can generate and customize chord progressions instantly for songwriting. And the Phrases tool gives you ready-to-go melodic inspiration right at your fingertips. With 165 instruments and over 150,000 sounds, Complete 15 helps you turn blank pages into music. Pair that with a Complete Control keyboard or machine hardware for seamless integration and hands-on control. Go to nativeinstruments.com and use the code ROCK10 for 10% off. That's pretty much what I did. When I was doing tape sessions, I finally had it set up where I'd patch everything to tape machine. Tape machine's an input. All the outputs are going to Pro Tools, and that's what I'm listening to. And so I'm always like hearing it and getting familiar with it. And like you said, like finding the vibe, and I'm already in Pro Tools and the band's hearing themselves with the headphones just right. And then like I could record it when the tape machine's an input, record it on the tape, but also record it to Pro Tools. So there's a digital recording. And then just, you know, once we decided which takes to transfer in, then just rewind the tape, press play, and they get transferred into Pro Tools. And that seemed to work pretty great. I mean, you run into some things like the click doesn't precisely line up anymore with what transfers in, but it's usually so close it doesn't matter.
Yeah, and I guess that
and it just didn't
fluctuates.
Matter.
Yeah.
And so that would work. And then did you ever kind of crack the code on the tape bounce trick so that like, because there is a way where you can continue to do all your overdubs off tape for the rest of the record if you want to?
There are projects where I do that. I have this template kind of set up. So if I'm band like the Men, their whole aesthetic is really based around tape. So my whole use of the computer, usually my use of the computer is very like, I don't know, Pro Toolsy, I guess. You know, like I'm not afraid to do all that. But with them, it's a different aesthetic. I'm not trying to like impart my schmutz on that. It really has to be like garage rock, has to sound like 8-tracky kind of like, that's all their records before they came to me sound like that. So we do every track is going to hit that machine. And even in an overdub situation, even if it's like not even a big deal in terms of like the sound, it's more just like, that's our workflow. That's what we're doing. And that's it. You know, it's all gonna, but when I'm mixing out of Pro Tools, it's still mixing out of Pro Tools, but it's like, I'm using it more in that kind of like, as a console kind of vibe. Like I'm not doing a lot of stuff to it. All the effects and compression stuff or whatever would be mostly baked in. A lot of times also I'll use, I don't know how much you do this, but in the box workflow, like just commit, just do a vocal chain, just commit it. You know, I have
get the vocal sound before it hits Pro Tools as opposed to waiting for
or just like even if it's part of the mix process or whatever, but just like do it early in the process. So it's like, I like this vocal sound and that's what it's going to be. And you just print it. So now you just have
it's great.
A channel that plays. But
and you're getting great vocal sounds. I mean, I got a bunch of questions I've got around
Go
that
ahead.
too. I mean, I'm hearing, even on Guided by Voices, the song Oxford Talawanda, you can't go back to Oxford Talawanda. One of the things I wrote down was just great vocal sound. And it's like, somehow like when the chorus hits, I think it was, or something, just something about the way Bob does his voice too. And it's like, there's this verb on it. It sounds almost like it's like calling out to a big room,
Yeah, there might
be chorus kind of vocals.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we actually do record those vocals in a big room, but you're probably not hearing that much, maybe a little bit. It just happens to be the room that we use in Dayton. But yeah, I mean, all those vocals
What room is that? Is that a Dayton studio that you guys go to?
No,
or is that
we do it. Essentially, it's the band's kind of rehearsal space and the band's label's headquarters. And it's like a big, almost feels like a loft space.
I did do one session in Dayton, and there's a really cool studio. I just don't remember what it's called. It was very
Cybertechnics?
Maybe it's very 70s wooden feeling. And
Cybertechnics.
And it was like, I was like, those NS10s sound killer in this control room.
I've never been there, but there is one big studio that kind of matches that description that you're mentioning that Bob has done some work with called Cybertechnics.
Yeah, maybe that's
it. Also, Dayton has this incredible funk history. So there are there are cool studios around that, like from that era that, there's a lot of cool history. But we're not recording in a studio at all. It's DIY, and we do all we record the music in my studio, but or mostly, at least the song you're talking about. But the vocals, we go to Dayton, and I just bring a laptop and a little rig, little SM7 action, little Scarlett business, and
nice.
And just keep it.
Oh, that's awesome.
Super. The one thing I've just found with that is just be like, the distortion sounds bad, really bad. So I just record everything really quiet, and then just be not really quiet, but just I'm conservative with levels, and I'm just recording things in a very boring way. And then I have a chain set up for Bob to hear what he needs to hear. Usually it's a SSL plugin, like the channel shift plugin. Just making stuff brighter, and then an 1176 plugin, the CLA 1176. Yeah,
I know it.
That's a good one. But then when it comes to mixing the vocals, usually, at least past few records, usually I'll have a album wide chain. Sometimes it's not always the same. So I'll pick the chain for the album, and I can't, and the one you're mentioning is our new album that's coming out, Thick, Rich, and Delicious. I can't even remember what that chain is. Jesus, I have to look it up. But it probably is 1176 into LA two-way.
Now, do you guys use, do you have some go-to things that you are likely to explore on records, like some particular kind of tape delay or something like that, and then some kind of reverb that you might check out? Or do you use room mics on things? Just in general on vocals, just when putting space on vocals.
For vocals, I would say that there's a certain percentage of, at least in GBV world, a certain percentage of songs where Bob just wants a dry vocal. So that's just going to be dry, And
doubles? Do you guys do doubles?
But the new record, Bob doubled everything, but he does it selectively dependent on the kind of song and the kind of vibe. The new record has our mutual buddy Bobby Bear Jr. is singing all the harmonies.
Yeah.
So
that's
Bob
great. Yeah.
Deployed Bobby as the harmony guy, and they're called on the liner notes of the record, they're called the Self-Righteous Brothers. Vocals by the Self-Righteous Brothers, Robert Pollard and Bobby Bear Jr. But yeah, but it just depends on songs. Like I generally will have a slap involved in any. I usually have my vocal effects template. Whatever it's very basic. I have a slap. I have like a spreader thing. Like a thing. It's got to have that, and a longer delay in play if I need it, and a shorter reverb and a longer reverb. That whole
What are some good go-tos for you when you think of shorter and longer reverbs? Are they anything in particular?
If it's like garagey, I'm a spring man. I like if there's like, if there's a for a longer, I have this really cool, like kind of cheap and shitty but awesome Furman spring reverb RV1. Sweet.
Have you found any digital versions of springs and stuff that ever hit
Magma.
you right, or is it almost always Magma?
I like
interesting.
Magma Springs is good, but it's you can't get like there's a funky shittiness to like especially like a $100 one. Like this Furman one's great. I think I had an Master Room. Was there a Master Room?
I got a Master Room rack unit.
That was
great.
That thing is cool.
But it kind of does a thing. It doesn't do everything, but it does.
No,
a couple.
It's not
two things
for
it
everyone.
does really well is it does a cool big spring thing, and if you overdrive the input, it's a like off the hook fuzz distortion too.
Yeah, I like that. I definitely like that. I also have it for in the box stuff. Like I keep switching it up. There are certain reverbs that are like golden that I love, like Valhalla Vintage Verb. Can't go wrong with that. Sounds great all the time. There's, I mix it up, whatever. I have the Slate stuff for like, if I want like fake EMT stuff.
I don't think I've tried their plates or anything yet.
It's pretty good. But it's just like in general, have you noticed just how plugins all rule now? Like it's crazy how good stuff has gotten, because the beginning of our chat, we were talking about the early days when nothing sounded good. There was like 5 plugins that sounded good, and you have to go through like reverbs all sounded bad back at least to me. I didn't know what to do with them back in the day.
Deverb could be fun sometimes. Sometimes
Deverb's cool. I'll still use
things.
it. Yeah, so that was the only one. Yeah, but I still like. It feels like reverbs being of a high quality is like a past 10 years kind of a thing. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
Right.
But I like to mix it up though. I like to have and if I can incorporate outboard stuff that's funky, like I mentioned the spring, or I have like funky, like I have like an old like Art FXR that has these crazy presets that go super long, really weird. I know that on previous records that Bob has done, he's worked with great engineer John Shao, who's made really cool records with Bob. Doug from the band, I think, had said something that he had somebody had clued me in that he had used one of these Art FXR multi-effects things. Bought it for like $69 on Reverb, and that's wild.
What we do, right? We hear somebody mention it, and we're like, we're right off getting one.
But I'm really not that into stuff like that. I always like to have a few pieces around that are weird. Also, guitar pedals. Massively into guitar pedals. I should have said that right away. When you said go to, okay. And then I was like slap. A lot of times I'll just have the slap as going as a through a Memory Man or a Space Echo guitar pedal with a tap on it. I use those for vocals too. Always.
I finally got a new I got a Memory Man, but it's a new one, but it's still pretty cool. So I'm hopeful that I'll be able to use it just like an old one. But Brad Jones, who was my mentor, at Alex the Great Studio, I remember he came back from a session. He just parked a Memory Man at the top of the console, and that's where it lived. It was always on a stand. You could just
same here. But this one belongs to GBV bassist Mark Shu. Mark, you can come and get your Memory Man anytime, bro. But the Memory Man does go on a lot of GBV stuff, because also there's, even if it doesn't like for the particular application, isn't like particularly like trying to go for like an older sound or anything, like they did use the Memory Man in like the classic, 4-track stuff. He would just sing into it. So it is like, okay, if I'm doing GBV, I got the tools of the trade here. We're going to use this. And then the other thing I've been using now, it's taking me like 20 minutes to answer your question, but another thing I've been doing with the guitar pedals though on vocals, obviously as a send, as 100% wet coming back or whatever. I got this, my buddy gave me this box, the Multivox Full Rotor. Do you know what this is? It's like a fake doubler kind of a thing. It's like basically, anyway, I just had this in the chain for my vocal effects chain. or I have like a pedals in it, and then it basically like, or if I have like an echo pedal, like Memory Man or whatever, and it adds like a little chorusy, phony Leslie, phony double tracking thing. It's supposed to be like a fake doubling thing, so that when your effects coming back, it's got a little, it's got a little pizzazz to it, even though it's going to be tucked in there. You're still going to have a pretty close vocal. It's fun to just like, I don't know. I feel like with vocal effects, it's kind of like, I don't like to do one set thing. I just kind of like feel the needs of the song. And a lot of times in like,
but that's like to your point, it's like, it's the needs of the song. That's what's so challenging sometimes, is because like you could be looking for a vocal thing on a song, and there could be 100 things that just suck. And you're like, that's not fucking it. No, that sounds stupid, And so it's like looking for that one that just seems to be right for this
also, I might just gravitate towards the suck. Be like, hey, this sucks, but good. Maybe this band needs this thing that would like with a, it just depends on who you're working with. Like the thing that would suck for Bob Pollard might be great on somebody else, or the thing was, or vice versa. So it's like, how do you navigate? Because like, suck is powerful, man. Like, what do you?
If it's
what
the right
is it?
thing,
it's objective. I mean, I'm sorry, subjective.
Subjective, right? Yeah.
Suck is subjective. So what do you? Sometimes a little of that is good. Like, oh, you should not be. Like for my whole run of doing this, I definitely have done things that you're not supposed to do repeatedly, and sometimes would be like, oh, just out of just being a dick about it, like, I don't know, just like, no, I'm gonna break the damn rules, but and then a lot of the times it's stupid, and you realize, no, the rules are there for a reason, like gain stage, you want to get good level, understand the basics of signal flow and stuff, and like, but just because somebody said that you're supposed to have a slapback on every vocal, or you're supposed to use a compressor in a certain way or whatever, you don't have to, right?
In looking at some of the photos from your sessions, there were some photos of vocals going down with the ear trumpet labs mic for stuff. Was that something you were messing with at one point, or you use that a bunch?
That goes back to, well, first of all, whoever the proprietor of Ear Trumpet Labs, thank you, sir. Going back to the days of...
I met him at blanking on his name, apologies, but I met him at maybe NAMM at one point. It was really cool.
That was
such a cool stuff that he's building.
Well, that was back in the days when I was doing that internet radio vibe, breakthrough radio.
Mm-hmm.
That one of our guys who was involved in the production side of that was contacted by them and said, "Hey, you guys, we see you do all these videos. You wanna use a couple of our mics for free?" They're like, yes. So I did. I wound up using them as overheads a lot. I still have 2 Edwinas. I use them kind of like as utilitarian large diaphragm condensers. Sometimes it's a bit much to throw that up in front of somebody to sing. They are made out of plumbing parts, and it's like, I'm not trying to, force like
use plumbing parts.
Yeah, I hope not. But I'm not trying with mic choice. Sometimes if you're pushing a visual aesthetic on a vocalist with a microphone that is weird, it freaks them out. That's a major thing, actually. You know what I mean? Like a big fancy microphone for like a punk rock singer. Like, what are they doing with that? With a U47? They don't feel right. Or you put a SM57 with a clown nose on it up for, Joni Mitchell or something. No, thank you.
How often do you have a band handhold a 57 for vocals?
That's totally dependent on the singer. I wish I did more like hardcore. I'm a big like fan of like super heavy stuff, like metal and hardcore and stuff. I would like to do a lot more of that music. And I feel like with those kind of vocalists, that's the vibe more. Like that's where they feel comfortable, is holding it. I don't really suggest it unless someone's really having a hard time or struggling or something. I would suggest that. Like these things are kind of badass to hold. The SM7, it's kind of Like James Hetfield? Girl.
I did one session at Bonnaroo. It was Edward Sharpe and the Magnetic Zeros. And he was just holding the SM7 singing into it from underneath the whole time. And it was like...
Wow. Nice. Totally.
Hey, rock stars. When it's time to finish your music, iZotope Ozone 12 gives you the powerful new tools to master with confidence. The new bass control helps you balance your low-end EQ, sustain, and punch so that your tracks translate everywhere. Unlimiter restores clarity and impact to overcompressed mixes, and Stem EQ lets you rebalance vocals, drums, and bass using only the stereo mix file. When it's time to push loudness, Ozone's new IRC5 Maximizer delivers clean and powerful competitive masters that stay open and musical. And with an updated mastering assistant that guides, not decides, you can move faster, make better decisions, and stay fully in control from start to finish. Go to iZotope.com and use the code ROCK10 for 10% off. Howdy, Rockstars. We're back now for the jam session, aka the second half of the show, aka I probably need a new name for it. My guest today is Travis Harrison, joining us from Serious Business Music.
Yeah.
So we'll try not to be too serious, though. You ready to jam, man?
Oh, I am definitely ready to jam. I'm always ready to jam. I was born ready to jam.
That's it. Well, okay. All fairness, you learned how to be ready for the session and ready to go. But share with us a story about not getting that right that, finally got you there.
Oh, like
you know what I'm saying?
Like a screw up?
Like too much butt crack on a session. Showing too much butt crack at the patch.
Yeah. Some of the toughest ones were back when I was doing the breakthrough radio thing that we were talking about before. And just when the bands were too big, like in terms of the number of people, too big for my setup. I have a setup that's really optimized for 3, 4, 5 person band. You put a 6 person in there. It's all right. We can do it. Sure. It's cool. Like we got enough space, but sometimes there's bands that have 7, 8, 9 people, horns, a lot of backing vocals, anything like that. There's no margin for error, right? In terms of, because we used to do those as 3-hour sessions. So it's just like, the highest level of anxiety, that can happen in a short period of time if something goes wrong. And in the worst situations that I've had are usually due to until very recently I've used it, but just it's like old Furman headphone system, you know what I'm talking about? That's got the
little 4-channel box with
4-channel with the stereo
cables.
knob. So it's basically 5. Yes. So I had that since the very beginning and until very recently, like within past couple of years. I had it down to I have it down. Very rarely did I need more, but with big bands, it's just like, it was just, it was very heinous. So, but what all that kind of like hot seat kind of stuff teaches you is preparation. So like I just had this headphone system to work with. So it means I had to pre-plan how I was going to do submixes. And if I knew I had 4 mono channels and 1 stereo channel as my headphone mixes, and the band is a horn section, a drummer, a conga, a bassist, lead vocalist, a guitarist, lead vocalist, and a keyboardist, lead vocalist. Like, what am I going to do? And you just
I like that you just I love that you just listed to that bass, lead vocal, guitar, lead vocal, keyboard, because that's what would happen. You're like, who's singing the verses?
They all 3 have lead. You know what I'm saying? They all do.
Yeah, they got to trade off.
Well, how do you do it? So I would just kind of like try to use this very bare bones kind of situation that I'm working with here to do my best to give the band and to plan it out ahead of time. Now, looking back on it after I've had a little experience and like a small amount of experience, but some experience in live sound working with GBV, like if I had my background in that, I would have approached it in a totally different way. But in this, with the background that I had and with the stuff that I had, I just would plan it out. And 90% of the time, it works out perfect. No problem at all. And then remaining 10% of the time there's an issue, like half times the issue's instantly resolved, you know? So as long as you can plan it out.
Well, and some of those really fast ones, like our hay bale sessions, we had 1 hour to get 3 songs for each artist. And I had, Sheryl Crow comes in with her full rock band from the stage.
Is there backline?
No, because I provided backline for the studio. So I had all
So they're playing they're playing
all my stuff. Yeah. Yeah. But they bring in their instruments,
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
If they're using your backline, that's how you cut out like all the time,
Yeah. And then some of the challenges there would be some of the bands, like you got to talk to the guys who talk to the guys who talk to the guys before the artist gets there. And that was always a fucking nightmare.
Yeah.
I was just like, if I could they'd send us the stage plots beforehand.
Right.
And a lot of times I just go, oh, thanks so much. And I just like toss it in the corner, but I might glance at it. It's like really, I'd just go to the door and I'd welcome them. I'd be like, what do you got? And you just like do it by your head. Try and be one of those wait staff that is just like doing it all from memory, and you just
there is a lot of that skill set comes into play when you're like dealing with situations like that. The wait when you wait tables. If you ever have an experience in the
I suck at waiting
service
tables,
industry,
but I learned how
skill
to
set
do
you got to develop.
Thing,
You got to develop like being able to hold 2 or 3, 4, 5 things in your head at once, and on a big tracking thing like that, especially if you're alone. There's always a lot of stuff going on, and you got to.
But you didn't have any help
prioritize.
On it.
No, I mean, yes, okay. So there were some years when I had Hans, my man, wherever he is, Hans Delsu, coolest dude ever, and he helped me out like on sessions. And there would be certain times when there might be interns or people who were around, maybe who were always great and could always lend a little helping hand. But in terms of actually engineering the sessions, 95% of them were just me alone, or sometimes when we were really in a groove and during a few years, my buddy Hans would run them. And actually one time
headphones or speakers?
Headphones in the beginning, but as I went along, I started to get into feeling it out and having not even a good PA, just like a shitty practice PA here. But it's there, and if there's a band that does not need to wear headphones, I started to stop forcing them into that. If somebody does not want to go somewhere... What about for you?
Were you in headphones, or were you in a control room where you could hear what was going on?
Control room. Disconnected. Cracking jokes all the time. Right. For real. Like, because the hardest part also is that when you're just meeting a bunch of people for the first time, in those kind of situations, those these podcasts or whatever things that we're talking about, it's hard because when you have a badass musician who's like made their life's work to be a sick guitar player, and like they play through a sweet ass rig and that they have a guitar tech and all this stuff, but like they're coming into my shitty studio and playing through my shitty backline, they're uncomfortable. They're like, what is this? This is weird. Oh, I have to wear headphones? I'm used to this is not what I'm used to. So the only way to do that, in my experience, is to keep things light, keep things moving, be cool, pay attention to people, if there's a chance to make a joke, do it. Yeah. For sure. Like, if there's a chance
I cracked a lot of dumb dad jokes over the talkback mic.
Doesn't even talkback jokes are crucial. It's not about you if you're making a talkback joke. It's for them so they're not nervous. That's the whole vibe. It's so about that. It's because like, especially when people are like performing, like if somebody's the type, you don't do it on the wrong person, like you have to be able to read the room, but like how many times does that help? Like when somebody is like up their own ass and then you're just like farts and they're like, they smell bad. All right, I'm ready to do the take, It's
Yeah, exactly.
it just cuts. You have to cut through the awkwardness of the situation. Like people, yes, they're take themselves really seriously, but like the best artists have crazy good senses of humor, and the most intense artists, the princes of the world, are funny motherfuckers. I'm sorry.
I've
if you
heard
have to
David
bleep any of
Byrne
this.
is like just hilarious.
Yeah, dude. Bob Pollard is one of the funniest people you will ever meet. He's like hilarious. And it's like, it's part of but it's definitely, if you can sense that there's somebody in the band who's light and cool, that's a good vibe to go with. If you could sense that there's somebody in the band who's like needs their space or whatever, give them their space, but also let them know that like, you're there if you need them. Like, is everything cool? Can I help you? Like, you need something? And if there's anything you can do to like cut down on the number of decisions people have to make, especially in those like 3-hour sessions, if you start like asking people what they think about everything, it's not a good.
You're done. You're done.
Yeah.
There's no listen back. I mean, occasionally, because I'd have them perform it and I would mix it live through the console, and that's the mix we would use. And sure enough, I got a lot of first verses where the vocal wasn't loud enough yet, and it creeps.
That's kind of cool though. Sometimes when you like,
it ends up working,
Yeah, it's just it's a live. That's a live mix. That's a performance. Yeah. That's like going to see a live show. When I did the thing with Breakthrough Radio, it was a little more like, I tried to control it a little bit because I needed to fix problems. Like, there's 5 open vocal mics. I don't know who's playing where, but like, I can't have the drummer's vocal mic like open all the time. I can't have a gate on it chirping and going on and off.
Right.
It's just got to be dealt with later. And it, depending on that band or whatever the situation is, or like, wow, keyboard player has like 3 patches and they're all supposed to be really powerful and awesome, but one is 12 dB louder than the other 2.
One of the things I discovered doing those sessions was I would always have a delay, and I'd have, I'd just have one delay. I'd have the delay, and then I'd have like some kind of room verb, and I'd have a spring verb. So there'd be like kind of digital thing to make the broom sound a little bigger, and there'd be the spring verb, which was vibey, and then the delay. And I would have a tap tempo switch for the delay on the edge of the console.
Awesome.
Which was fun, because then you could just instantly make it a slap or long, and you could just put it in time with the song as it's slowing down and speeding up. But like that variance in what's happening with the delay was something I'm like, we don't ever do that in the studio. We like set a delay for a mix,
Right. Yes. So I never did live sound ever in my life. And until I started working with Guided by Voices, Bob asked me to come out. They would normally just go out and house people or whatever. And I'm not on a live sound podcast right now, But one of the things that I would do in that gig is I would always have the tap delay going. And a lot of times it would help me lock into there's no delay on the song, but it helps me just lock into the music to hit it. It's a physical thing. You know what I mean? Like, just to be like, okay, this is where we are. If I need that, that's what I would do. And then I'm okay, here's and I'm feeling, and I'm trying to always, in that situation, live mixing, and that goes for like, if you're in the studio and you're, like I was saying before, mixing on tape or whatever, and you have faders under your fingers and stuff. Like, I totally believe in trying to lock in as much as you can, like you're playing, like, not necessarily doing stuff constantly, but trying to be so in the moment that you're reacting to what they're doing. So like when homies like keyboard patch is super loud, you're at least like, well, got you, bro. Or if like someone's got a beautiful soft voice and their part comes up and they're like, you got to be there. Where like a lot of times people in the house, the stereotype of the shitty house sound guy at a shitty club who just doesn't care.
They're literally eating their dinner out of a takeout box, and they're not even touching just like faders during the performance.
And like spending sound check, mansplaining stuff to people. That kind of thing. It's like the opposite of that, like trying to like be really in it and really present, but also that's really hard to do, And
it takes a lot of energy.
Yeah. So like when it's a live audience and stuff, you're wrapped up in that. But when you're in like a, podcasty kind of environment, like you got to just get locked in. So get that tap going, dude. Get that, whatever you got to do to get yourself in the inside of what they're doing.
Well, it was fun because I discovered things like, if you do a tap tempo along with the song, you could like go real short and do like a slap in the verses and then open it up in the chorus and do stuff you just never do otherwise. I don't think you can do a tap tempo on a Memory Man though, right? You'd have to just ride the knob or something.
Yeah. But I use this, the Boss Space Echo, the RE20. It's got, and
is that the new digital one or whatever? Or is that the old school?
I mean, it's, like I bought it at Guitar Center, so I guess it's new.
Yeah, the pedal.
Yeah, but I would use that live when there's certain songs where Bob would want me to extend his notes. Like, he's got a long note and so it's really good to like tap in a whole note, and then ready to let that freak flag fly. And all of a sudden, a long note, you can have it extend like throughout a whole instrumental section. That was fun.
Yeah, exactly. Are you ready to launch your career in the audio or entertainment business? SAE Institute Nashville, right here in the heart of Music Row, offers hands-on programs to prepare you for the industry. From studio production and live sound to audio for film and a whole lot more. You'll learn by doing, working with professional-grade gear alongside experienced industry pros. If you're more into the business side of entertainment, SAE's Entertainment Business Program teaches essential basics like contracts and promotion to help you navigate the industry. With diploma, associate, or bachelor's degrees, there's a path for everyone. Plus, Career Services supports graduates as they take the next step. Want to see it for yourself? Immerse yourself in Nashville's exciting music scene and book a tour today at nashville.sae.edu or call 615-244-5848. And then, like if we took that thinking back to the studio, we would just simply set up, a pedal, a delay, or something like that with the tap tempo, and we just have that printing to a track. And we could always once we did one, and we're like, "Ooh, that felt great," it was captured. And if we just needed to redo it, we just punch in on the verse and, tighten it up or something like that. But
for sure,
it'd be fun to get in that habit. I haven't really done it.
Yeah. It's cool. Like I like if someone asks in the studio, they're like, let's do this delay effect or whatever. I think the way to do it is get a pedal out and do it. If the asker for the effect can somehow actually do it on the pedal, that's the best. Cause then that person is going to get,
no, it's their thing. It's their sound.
Yeah. And it's it is also, it's not the best look for the engineer producer to be like, guys, I got this idea for a really long echo. It's like, yeah, maybe. But in a live situation, I find it's more like a cartoon kind of like you are with an audience, like you're trying to amplify the moments that are happening. So sometimes there are things that you wouldn't do for a record, like making something extra loud when it's featured, or I don't know. That was the way I also don't take my advice on that world, man. I'm there for them. I was there for them 100%, so, but I don't have any experience other than, that. But
it's fun to do. I never wanted to do live sound because I was just I tried it and I was like, yeah, I like the studio, but but to do it sometimes is great. Great to get that experience,
It's awesome to have the experience.
Let's talk a little bit more about some of your process. So you got the console if you want to use pedals, does the console give you that ability to just run a 1/4-inch jack out of a Ghost over to a pedal and back in, and so it's really convenient?
100%. It's just the best thing about the Ghost, and the thing that really the only thing that I'm really using it for is just how its routing is set up.
Yeah.
So it's just for the bang for the buck. I've got 8 aux sends, so I have those perma hooked up to my favorite effects. So like my aux 3 is going to my like pedal chain. My aux 4 is going to my FXR, like fun, like these art reverb that I was saying before. My 5 is going to my spring. My 6 is going whatever, like down the line of whatever I'm working with then. So it gives you the ability to, on a session, if there's going to be some stuff that you're going to that needs to be used on a tracking session to make there be vibe, then use it. But like really, it gives you the ability, if someone's like, hey, can you put a crazy delay on my guitar solo? You're like, as a matter of fact, I can. And you just like have it instant with no mouse clicks, or a couple, but like,
yeah,
that's super handy. Somebody told me a story of like years ago, might've been Andy Ross, who I mentioned before, we worked with Dave Fridman, that he had that kind of a vibe going on. And I was like,
yeah,
he's onto it. Or that, I wouldn't know, because I'd never been in a real studio. I have no idea. But I'm just like, that's it. You just want to have everything like, so that's why that's why I'm addicted to having this Ghost here. And I also want to, it's ready to go. I would really like to replace it with something real. But
well, I think one of the challenges is we get into black and white thinking about studio stuff, where we're like, do we have a console or do we not have a console? And it's like, you don't have to make that choice. You could have like a little one. You could even just have one of those Mackie 12 channel mixers or something off to the side. And it's to your point, it's like, you've got like 4 sends from your Pro Tools session that go over to it. And then you can route all kinds of effects and just feed the faders back into a track. And now you've got this unique sound on your effect that
it's all
you
about,
just sort of performed in.
Totally. And it's all about doing that with the least amount of time and friction. When people are in a creative flow state, especially if they're playing takes and like they're in it, the last thing that they need is some guy dicking around with his own ideas. That's bad. But if you have a reason to use one of those things, you want to have it at your fingertips, so that it's not a like, okay, hold on 1 second, let me just get, I gotta patch this in, and that's when the butt crack comes out, and you got to have it. And then it's okay to just have a limited palette, because 9 times out of 10, the thing that they're going to ask for is reverb, delay. What else? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of things. Like, don't just keep it, simple, and just have a distortion. I don't know. That's why I like the pedal chain thing, because it could be anything, and everybody likes pedals.
Well, and the other part too is, half the time when we have, sometimes we think about effects as being these, pristine or something like that. It's like, oh, it's high quality. And it's like, you actually don't really want that. You like start with high quality, and they're like, how can I make this sit in the track? Because you have to dumb it down to fit, and it's just like, in those ways, when you do go out to console setups and you're going out and back in and kind of running through some stuff, it actually imparts that quality that makes it feel like it's more familiar and fit.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I feel that way. Also, like, effects in general, like, that's not, I don't know, just like in my bag of tricks, it's not like, I'm not like known for like ethereal like stuff.
Yeah, but your records have a lot of effects on it, but I think you guys are capturing it coming from the band in a cool way. I mean, the guitars do. The vocals sound like there's interesting spaces. The drums maybe are a little bit more, there's not a lot of room drums, I wouldn't necessarily say. Maybe there is, but it's like, but that's probably because the drums are contrasting a little bit with all that other stuff so that, you need those close mics sometimes to be able
For
to
sure.
read the kick and the snare and the hi-hat and stuff.
I love room drums, by the way. Like when I first started like doing recording, like all I wanted to do was to have like a John Bonham drum sound, but that is the thing that's so hard to do because you really that does not work for everybody, that drum sound. If you really know what that is, and we know how you get that, or I don't know how, I don't get it. Because it's too hard. You need to have an amazing drummer with those like really high tuned big drums in a room with one mic. You can't where do you get a situation like that where you can make that sound work as your default, where I've got like a whole bunch of bands coming in and it's impossible. So,
and they didn't have the bass and the guitar amps cranking up in that same room with the drums. I don't think.
And then like in a live tracking situation, depending on what you're working with, like your room gets sacrificed because depending if you have ISO or not. Like in my studio, I go both ways. Like that's like the question I asked the band like right away. Like, do you guys want to be like rocking live in the room, or do you want to be like in headphones with isolation? And 99% of the time, the answer is kind of obvious to the band. It's not to me until I ask it. Well, maybe no. A lot of times it's obvious to me without having to ask it. But when I do have to ask it, like it's obvious to them. Like, oh no, well of course we're gonna have the amps in the room, or like.
And if they don't quite know, is that usually an indicator that they're just new to the studio?
Sure. And then I'll just give them the parameter. Just be all right. Well, here are the pros and cons. Pro. It's just like you're at a show or in a rehearsal, and you can get feedback out of your amp, and it's right there next to you. Con. If you screw up, the bleed that's on the drum mics is like going to be there. So like, does everybody know the songs really well? If the band doesn't know the songs really well, if the bass player is not really knowing the songs really well, like whatever, like then you're like, okay, well, ISO, let's ISO,
Yeah.
Unless you want the mistakes on there, which is cool too.
It can be. It absolutely can be. Let's talk about that, because it's one of the things that I really dig about your sound is I'm like, oh man, it's so great to hear it sound like the guitars sound spacious, because of the room mics and things going on. So talk a little bit about ways that you do set that up. And let me see if I can even pick one of the bands, King Cobb Rochambeau. So for example, guitars and bass in the same room with the drums, ? Big room ? That's what I wrote down.
Yeah, I'm trying to think about that track. Oh, that band's great. I think those guys, we definitely did that on tape. They called ahead. We talked about it beforehand, and they were like asking about the tape, and I was like, it was about to go the other way, and I was like, no, come on, we got to go on tape, because they wanted it's garagey, and that is probably I'm without consulting my notes, I'm pretty sure they were live, the amps in the room for sure.
Right. Okay.
If I'm not correct on that, then whatever. But the band, like the Men that I made like 4, 5, 6 records with, they're always live in the room. The most recent Guided by Voices record, Thick, Rich, and Delicious, coming out when this comes out, it'll be out. It's live in the room. 3 guys with the amps in the room, and all the bleed is baked into the drum mics. That's not a ton. It's not. It's like manageable. It's not. It's all. Like, I don't know. It's just in there. So that...
But let's dive into it, because you've got a lot of experience with that. So there's probably a lot of things that you consider as you're setting up, that a lot of little micro decisions you make that might be fun for us to talk about. For example, where the hell are the guitars relative to the drums? Where's the bass amp go? All that kind of stuff.
In my current space, so... If we're rocking all in the room, basically, if you just divided it into like half, right? There'd be like half of it has the drums, and then the other half of it is pretty much close to the wall, or like facing the wall, would be where the amps are. And then I would put them in.
So the amps aren't right next to the drums. They're sort of separating a little bit.
No, I don't do that. Although in the back of back in the day when I would do the breakthrough radio sessions and everything, yeah, I mean, sure, I would. And back in those days, I might be. There definitely been years of doing that. It went by where I'd be like, yeah, I'm just gonna leave this bass amp right next to the drums, because if you just let there be bass on the drum mics, that's cool. At least it'll be like tighter bass than like weird roomy bass. But I don't really do that anymore. Like it's not. The other thing is that the volumes, like you can't really do it with bass that's too loud. Like the bass volume can't really, like I usually, my house bass amp is an old Ampeg B15, which is awesome. But when the bass gets too loud, if you have like a SVT through a stack or something, and like that can really just like, you're pushing way too much air, then you're going to ruin your drum recordings. I would say low end, too much low end is going to ruin your drum recording. So you really need, your bass player has to be
because it never
cool.
goes away. Because that doesn't let the drums bring you low end and let it go away, because it's just always there.
Guitar, on the other hand, if guitar is too loud in the drum mics, hey, look, could be a problem, but not the worst problem to have. The worst problem to have is the bass being way too loud.
Yeah. So are there times where like the guitar being too loud in mics ends up being the problem that gives it that signature? You know, it's like,
it's not a problem anymore. Totally. So like all those records that we talked about, they're all in the, like just always, no matter what overheads I'm using, even if there's always bleed in them. Let me talk about the Men record really quick, the most recent one that we did.
Yeah, please do.
Buyer Beware. It's so cool. They wanted a drum sound that was kind of like more of a one mic drum sound. Wow. Which I love. That's like always my favorite drum. That's like it's my favorite drum sound, but like it's just hard to do with like that kind of volume in the room.
Yeah. It's like the Dap Kings thing, like what Al Evans talks about too.
I love that sound. I love that whole aesthetic. Totally. It's like, seriously, I love that stuff. But it's not often that a band will be like, oh, that's the sound that we want. And like, I'm not going to pick that as my default thing to do, because it's a tough gig, you know? But for the Men, we did it. There's a record called it's called New York City. We did it with that kind of a vibe. But it was before they really articulated to me the sound that they wanted was really like this one mic kind of a thing. It was kind of more like, we want it raw, and I had like mics, not like a crazy setup, but like, I don't know, kick, snare, toms, overhead. The next one, we were trying to hone in the sounds. They were like, we want to do everything we did for the last record. We just want to crank everything way up. So like, we want the drums to be more of the one mic. We want the guitars to be more fuzzy. We want the vocals to be more blown out. So to accomplish it for the drums, I just did it with M160, like Ringo overhead. But the thing that made so much difference was, you know how like you can buy like those foam rubber, like it's like $99 on Amazon, like fake vocal booth, like this little foam thing that goes around I did that, and I made like a little hut. So it was even more like, like it was really protected. And
so
I just kind of moved that
the
vocal
one
mic drums
screen or whatever is like the little foam screen curving around the mic is on the side that faces the room where the guitar amps are.
The M160 is like the little directional ribbon mic, the little super cardioid ribbon mic. So I just had it
right
as like
above the drums,
right above the drums, and then I just kind of had like the thing kind of like on the amp, protecting it from the amps,
right,
like kind of close to it, and it worked. It worked so well. I was like, wow, and it let that mic carry a lot more weight than on our previous attempts. Like there's still the guitar sound is like it's at that mic. It's like everything's just like the bleed, So I was able to get it to be a little more isolated, but still have all that stuff, but be able to like have it carry the weight of the kick and the snare without being, a normal multi-mic drum set.
And then, so mono overhead for the drums, right?
For the Men, yeah. But normally I'll do, stereo, usually ABs.
Hey rock stars, writing and recording your next great song just got a whole lot easier with Complete 15 from Native Instruments. This powerful toolkit gives you everything from deep sound design to instant musical ideas. Contact 8 introduces creative features like the new Chords tool, letting you generate and customize compelling chord progressions without needing to know music theory, making it perfect for songwriting. And the Phrases tool helps you find fresh melodic lines on the spot. With over 165 instruments and more than 150,000 sounds, Massive X, battery, and Guitar Rig 7 Pro, you've got everything you need to create in any genre. You can shape your ideas into real music fast. Whether you're sketching an idea or finishing a full production, Complete 15 keeps you in the creative flow from first note to final mix. Add your Complete Control keyboard or machine hardware to the mix for seamless integration and hands-on control. Go to nativeinstruments.com and use the code ROCK10 for 10% off. Yeah, and I've noticed you also do some really tasteful stuff. Let me see if I can figure out where it was. Which one did I write down? Yeah, Dug Up Proust, the new restaurants, like the hi-hats. Like there's a lot of really smart, close miking of the hi-hats on some of the records you do.
I mean, I would have to review that.
But also
one.
Your
that one's great.
Hi-hat mics and your overheads are very, and we don't have to, like, when I ask these questions, don't think about it like I need the exact answer on this record. It's more like what comes to mind for you. But like you're choosing really tasteful mics, or the way it hits tape, or the way you're EQing it, where it's like there's never too much high end. And I even notice on some of your records, the cymbals get all the high end in the song, and the vocals actually are more mids and below that, but it's like it totally works. It's not like it's not like one of those things where the cymbals are leaving you going like, turn the fucking cymbals down. You know, you're like,
I'm sure I've dropped some of those too through the years, but yeah, I mean, cymbals are dangerous. As anybody who mixes aggressive music knows that like cymbals are dangerous, and depending on different, like I'm always on a journey of trying to figure out how to do this stuff. So, and then there's also like certain drummers need to have their cymbals heard more as their energy is coming from that, where like other drummers, maybe their energy isn't coming from that, or like their weaknesses are being shown in their cymbals, but like their strengths are being shown in their, or whatever. And it's the equation is totally different. And then I also change everything on every record. So like, even though I have templates, you know, that I start from, like with drums, there's certain things that are basically, but it's like things, I switch stuff up, you know. And
well, what works for hi-hats for you? What are things you might try on a hi-hat?
Well, first one is nothing. It's always a good place to start for a hi-hat, is nothing. Just what's going on in the overheads is, honestly, if someone is doing open hi-hats, it's a completely different instrument from closed hi-hats. It's like going from acoustic guitar to metal zone guitar. It's like such a different instrument to deal with in terms of a mix, and in terms of the way that it's interacting with other, at least in a multi-mic drum set environment, right? Like if you so that's why it's like, if you have a hi-hat mic, I don't know, man, it might sound really good when dude is closed, but he's somebody who's opening his hi-hat up every time it goes into the chorus, and every chorus is like slosh town. So it's like, I don't know how, I mean, I'll have the mic there, but it's negative 32 or like off.
I guess do you ever feel like sometimes it's good to have it as that backup for the verse in the song where you needed it?
It's always in my default setup. And also I found like, also like when with any element of the drum set, like a lot of times it's if someone says, hey, can you turn the hi-hat up? Like, okay, I'm gonna grab that hi-hat mic, I'm gonna just turn that shit right on up. But we're like, that might not be the best way to turn the hi-hat up or down. Like, and the same that goes for every element, right? Like, how many times has it been like, I don't know, turn the snare down, and it's like, well, maybe the snare is like insanely loud, or maybe the snare is just like barely in there, and like, how do I even turn the snare down? Well, I'm just using a lot of overhead, so it's not always like, with hi-hat, it's like, I don't know. It's like, I always make jokes when I was doing live sound. I was like setting up the hi-hat mic with the house sound guy and be like, no, this is the most important mic on the stage. It's not at all. It's not at all.
Yeah. So what about that in terms of mixing? So since you're doing a lot of band stuff, do you, and you're moving to the computer, have you found that you still have a great value on being able to move faders around to arrive at where the sound is? Or are you doing it with a mouse now? Or how do you address that? Do you still
that's
use
the
a
one
console?
thing. That's the one thing that the in-the-box workflow stuff, it limits that. And I don't have a surface where I'm doing that right now. But I'm going to do a hot take right now. My shit sounds better when you're not doing that all the time. Yes.
Yeah.
So it's like, in terms of, because the moves you're making are based on the data that's coming in, and then there's a stage in between. You're not making the gut instinct move. You're making the move based on the data that's coming in. Meaning like, those cymbals are super loud in that chorus, and like every time the chorus comes up, the drums sound really too cymbal heavy. Crashes are insane. I got to deal with that. That's the data. You put that in, and then my whole thing is, I call it versioning. I have all these dumb words, but basically, like, when you print a version, you make notes, you listen on your different things, you have your notes, and then you go back for the next version. So that's that's where all that stuff comes into play. Like, how much time do you have to accomplish it? The other thing, and focusing on the things that are really only important, and focusing on the things that are definitely problems,
right?
Objectively problems.
Yeah, I get a lot of value from the take notes
or like overly sibling vocal
notes on a mix.
Low end. Yeah. Like all those things that are like dangerous.
Oh, you're not plugged in. Here we go. We're going to lose power. No, we're still here. You were about to. I'll just keep riffing on that. The difference between making a lot of changes in the moment is kind of like replaying the solo. You get further away from the last solo you just did too, right? Versus printing something and then going back and listening in the car, listening on the other speakers and taking notes and just going and addressing those things that you had in your notes. Sometimes that's great because it really focuses
100%.
like what you're going to do on this next one. Because otherwise you hear more shit in the moment again, and you get caught, and you're lost. You're lost on shit.
Yes.
All right.
The only way I've ever been able to mix is through notes.
I have I just keep writing down guitars, big drums, which is great. Like Goon Line, Dope Body, killer vocal effect on that one.
A Dope Body. Those guys are great, man.
Slap.
Yeah, that was a long time
like
ago.
Slap echoes and Room, and so it's more of that same topic.
Yeah.
Oh, and then also Never Let You Go, Night.
That was a really cool record.
I wrote that for that. I just wrote down great use of like mix bus or drum compression. You really feel that kind of happening on the music in an awesome way. Do you mix through Outboard stuff now, even when you're in the box? How do you like to approach that?
Those, for sure. Yeah. Those records are all live.
They just sound great. They sound cool.
Yeah. I use the Outboard stuff kind of as a commitment step. So if I'm going to use always on bass, usually, like I will like to have a hardware compressor on bass printed, especially if I'm mixing stuff coming in that I haven't recorded. Like stuff I record, it's going to go in, but I'm a big fatso man. I'm a fatso man on bass, gotta say.
Okay. So you got an Outboard fatso.
And for vocals, yeah, I have two of them. I have a UBK one and a original one. Or I have a 1176 and LA2A, clones. But like,
Yeah.
I'd like to use those as a chain and tandem, the classic way, but you get so much mileage out of that. And then I have distressors, and I use distressors. I usually track through the distressors for vocals, but you, for the outboard compression and stuff, a lot of times I will, in the mix stage, I will bring that in if I'm mixing something that's like home recorded or, recorded really raw. And then I'll do the main moves that, with something cool like bass. You're going to compress a bass. Like, why do I have to have plug-in open constantly? Just like, let's just do this, So that's usually the way.
So you'll track through a compressor. Do you sometimes track the bass and then after you've already recorded it, then you're adding some more compression to it and some more treatment and then just print that back in?
Yes, but more often if I record it, I'm more happy with the way I recorded it,
Yeah.
And if I'm getting it, if I'm getting a really raw bass recording from somebody, I would just, that's not that, I love mixing people's like home recorded stuff and people's like, that's what I've been doing the whole time. So when people send me stuff like that, I love it. But I find like a lot of times it helps. First stage, let's get that bass going through a fatso. Let's get that bass getting kissed by the sweet lips of the fatso. Because then you're just eliminating having to worry about just, I don't know. I just like committing to certain things.
Well, let's talk more about recording bass in your place too, because you talked about challenges with the bass amp being too loud. So are you often using your B15 for bass sounds, even with a rock band, or do you find that SVT or something that's a little bit bright is the way to go?
I have the B15 is my thing that's just like my backline that I own that just kind of sits here and it's the coolest thing. But whoever's recording, people will often, bring their stuff, of course. And I just find that the most important thing is if somebody is for bass, the bass player, if somebody is a tone person who really like is focused on that, let them do what they got to do. Because 9 times out of 10, they know what sounds right. You know what I mean? You're just documenting. But if you have somebody who's not a tone person and who's just kind of like playing the bass,
where's the DI,
fitting into the band and doing a good job or not, doesn't even matter. That's, I'm going to dig in a lot more. I'm going to be a lot more aggressive probably with EQ, be a lot more aggressive with compression, especially if, just depends on the musician or whatever. But
well, let's talk about the tone person, because I mean, like those are the probably sounds that leap out to me too. Is the sound of an amp. Somebody brings in an amp and it's kind of growling. It's got some attitude. It's very cool. What do you do then? Like, are there mics that are very useful? What have you learned about?
I'm an SM57 man. I am an SM57 on the bass cabinet, man. I like it because, first of all, there's a growl situation, the mid-range. I'm a big fan of like mid-range. What I don't want on a bass cabinet is like a Beta 52 or somewhere like in a live situation where they put on like a bass drum mic on the bass cabinet.
Right.
What's going on? I like how this 57 is really mid-range heavy. And then I also feel like the proximity effect is fine. It's bass. So I'm like,
so it brings up the lows.
Yeah. It's never like, oh, it's so thin sounding. It's like, no way. It's like so I'm a huge proponent of have you heard of that one? The Shure SM57? Have you ever?
Yeah. So center cone kind of placement typically?
Yeah. Yeah. Maximizing the amount of high end I can get out of it.
And then do you find that in a room, the low end EQ on the bass amp needs to kind of get turned down more than what they might be used to?
Probably. But in my room, it's a little on the smaller side. And there's a lot of it's not just an open room, basically. There's like a lot of like stacks of amps and shit around, and then there's like acoustic treatment and stuff. And so the bass kind of doesn't go that far in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's kind of like tamped down a little bit in there just by the just a way. There's like there's a column in the room. I don't know if any of this makes any difference, but I have not, in this particular room that I've been in for about 10 years, had problems with that. It's just kind of like the only time
you
it's a
can
problem.
let the bass come out of the amp still. Yeah. Like the bass frequency.
Yeah. But also bearing in mind that I'm probably going onto those overheads and everything below 100 hertz is probably gone, you know. So
right. Oh, I see. You're just shaving off lows out of the overheads anyway.
Sure. If it was a problem, I would definitely not hesitate to do that. But if it's not a problem, I would, wouldn't, I'd have a little bit of a high pass.
Are you recording your own music or other people's music in your studio, but you're having trouble figuring out how to get your mixes to sound great? Do they sound weak and distant or lack punch and clarity? Well, I've got a gift for you to help you take your mixes from sounding like basement demos to sounding a lot more like professional mixes. And it's my free course called Mix Master Bundle. This course will show you how to get pro-sounding mixes from your home studio with free and stock plugins in Pro Tools. And the best part is, these mixing techniques will work for you in any DAW, whether you're in Logic, Cubase, PreSonus Studio One, Reaper, or anything you can think of. Are you ready to make your best record ever? Then go to mixmasterbundle.com to get started for free now, and you can find the clickable link in the show notes of this episode. How often are you low passing the overheads?
I go through phases. Sometimes I do. It just depends. I don't know. I just kind of go through phases, but I'm always dealing with it somehow. So sometimes I will have, like a little low pass, like a little something just to kind of have some highs shaved off. But other times I deal with it with like a de-esser. Sometimes I'll deal with it with like an F6 in like the harsh areas. Or sometimes I'll just have like little needle point pricks where like a shitty cymbal is, or like a resonant frequency, and sometimes a little bit of all those things, but not a lot of any of them.
So Rockstars, the F6 is it's a multi-band, or I think it's a dynamic EQ from Waves, so you can actually like pick your frequency and it'll just compress there. And then the sharp, the needle points, you're referring to like a really a band filter at those points.
And I use the F6 to do them too, even if I'm not going to use it for like a compression. Like you can get a really sharp cue and get in there and deal with resonant frequencies and things that are like not cool. And that comes in handy, if you have, say, a musician who has a heavy hi-hat hand, or maybe you have a shitty mic placement situation going on. And be like, oh, if I would have known that this person is going to play like this, I should have mic'd it differently, but I didn't. Right. So,
which is challenging. Now, how often do you go out and put yourself on drum kits and find out what things sound like in your space?
A lot.
Different mics, different things.
A lot. And my space is not during a session. I'm not doing that. It's usually
it's got to be off session. Yeah.
Yeah. And I do a certain amount of playing kind of like on my own, like as a playing for other people's records. People send me tracks and I'll do, add drums, or, there's projects I do where I'm the drummer but when I'm recording myself, it's kind of tough. But over the years, I've just kind of like sucked it up. That's just kind of, there's only one of me. I should probably get it on my laptop on like a VNC, like be able to have it by my side, but I don't have that yet. But I do, with the drums, I'm definitely like in there, and I do have the actual physical drums. That's a big part of it. The actual drums sound good. You gotta make sure that's going on. And it's not like about the
actual drum kit is a good drum kit, you're saying. You got to start there.
Or at least you like it. And it works for your genre or whatever. And it's not always about like, oh, well, okay, my drums are supposed to sound, or have to sound good. So I'm going to buy drum heads and buy things. It's like, yes, that can help to have fresh drum heads, but it's not like the only thing. There's like so many variables in a drum set, So like I change my heads out, but it's not like, I feel like there's so many other things involved than that. tuning.
Yeah.
It's pretty huge.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that I've like, somebody taught me how to tune drums when I was younger. Shout out to Gary Worrell, my drum teacher from Sayville. But like, that is such a huge skill.
One last question I want to ask you, Guided by Voices. Some of those tracks, I feel like I'm getting acoustic guitars through a DI, and it's such a great, cool use of that. I don't even remember what song it was. I think it might have been on the new album, Thick, Rich, and Delicious.
Okay, yeah, acoustic. Bob demos all of the songs for Guided by Voices on acoustic guitar into a boombox. He plays them into a boombox on tape, and then it blown out. It's a boombox, sounds amazing. It's this crazy thing that it does. Whatever it does, it's like it's limiting, or it's a boost or something. I don't know. Whatever. I don't know what it's doing. It's hitting the tape, whatever, and then he edits that to the form that he wants for the final song. So sometimes using a CD burner. So he'll go cassette to CD burner, because he, it's the way he's always done it. And so he paused, boom, 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 chorus. We're gonna rewind that. And then he sends me those demos, the acoustic guitar demos. A lot of times during the record, I've made 19 records with them now. A lot of times we're during the pandemic and everything, we had to do it all remote. Now, most recent ones, we're doing them all live. But the acoustic guitar is part of, I will do a process where I take it, I cut, because he has, he's doing it in a very kind of like primitive kind of way with the boombox and everything. So I take it, make it so that it all goes in time smoothly. And so you can play along to it. And then that becomes the Robo Bob that the band can then play along to. So now people can build their parts to that. A lot of times that acoustic, well, I won't say a lot of times, but several times in the run of records that we've done with them, the acoustic guitar, Bob's acoustic guitar, has made the record. Meaning the demo from the boombox we just use it, or it'll be in certain sections, because it just sounds cool. And he's a fantastic guitar player, in his own right. And then Doug Gillard, the amazing guitar player of Guided by Voices, has a very, very specific tone in his mind. If he's going to utilize acoustic guitar, he has a very specific idea for a sound that he wants to hear. He doesn't like to hear too much sparkly high end and stuff. And he actually uses a lot of times he has a nylon string acoustic guitar that he's used on a lot of his own music that has this beautiful warm sound. And his electric guitars are very bright and biting, and so it's just his aesthetic a lot of times of tonally of like how he kind of hears the palette of acoustic being worked into those songs. Doug. Yeah.
That's great, man. It's always fun when we work with people who have a vision and we can, put our efforts into just sort of understanding where they're trying to get to.
That's how you can learn so much from that.
Dude, this has been awesome. This has been a blast, man. I could talk about this forever with you, so we'll have to have you back, man.
Sure.
But I do have a closing question. This is our hypothetical question I like to ask all the guests on the show. You've been waiting for it. We get to take the Wayback Studio machine, and you go back in time and you find young Travis, and you maybe say like, dude, you might not want to, don't sign that lease for that place because it's not soundproofed or whatever. You go back and find young Travis and you just say, dude, I've come back to give you this one bit of advice. Here's the single most important thing you need to know to be a rock star of the studio yourself one day. What advice would you like to go back and give yourself if you could?
Well, I don't think I have a cool answer to that question. It's more of like a nuts and bolts maybe kind of answer. Because like, honestly, the only way that I've been able to do this has been through the network of people that have just kind of like been a part of the flow of by whatever I've been doing. And I guess like if you're a freelancer and you're doing this thing kind of like out there on your own, which is what I've been doing all this time, and just kind of floating through this world of word of mouth and all this stuff. What I should have told myself early on is to 10 or 15% more organization and energy into the actual serious business part, not the ironic calling my, hey man, I'm a rock and roll guy, serious business, because and that same goes for anybody in the music business at all. Like if you're a songwriter or right? Like a session musician, like people who understand how business works and stuff, they can navigate through situations better. And so I've just had, that's just one of those things you just get, if you could go back and tell yourself, be like, listen, dude, if you have a dead month, maybe you should work on going to some shows, supporting some local people, or building your network, or building your website, or things like that. Which is I'm telling my 45-year-old self to do that because it's tough, music business. It's fickle, music. I'm sure you've known people who the thing that they do doesn't pay the bills anymore, and then it's over, and it's game over.
Right. Well, and as we get older too, we have to remember that unless we intentionally reconnect with the young music community and what's going on, we get disconnected from it,
100%.
Too.
Yeah.
And they're out there. I mean, the kids are out there making cool band records.
Seriously. There's some and also every time I get a little down on it, then someone comes around and they're like, wow, Yeah.
So isn't the best when you find a young band and they play something and you're like, oh my God, that's just and you've got some reference in your mind and they've never heard of it?
Yes. I have to stop myself sometimes, dude, because it's sometimes I just, that's a studio lesson. Sometimes when the thing comes to your mind to say, maybe just don't say it because, you guys sound just like such and such. And they're like, who?
Well, dude, it's been great hanging with you, man. Thanks for joining us on Recording Studio Rockstars. I got to come visit you when I'm in New York again. Pay a visit.
Great, man. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
I'm really honored to have you here on the show, man. It's great stuff. Rockstars. Please check out Travis's playlist. It's really fucking good. These are
thanks.
If you're into rock stuff, if you're into punk, if you're into garage, any of those kind of things of a band just cutting loose in a room, this is the sound. This is the sound. You need to go study this. I mean,
Thanks so much, man.
I don't want to get myself in trouble here, but my thought was I'm so glad I met Steve Albini and heard what he was doing, and I'm so glad I just learned about you and what you're doing.
Wow, thanks, man.
You guys are both making brilliant records.
Well, thank you.
You're still making them. Yeah.
I will. That guy, he was a legend.
But it's just cool because it's a different kind of sound too. You guys can both have this incredible respect for band performing live together, loudness, how to manage all that and arrive at different kinds of sounds, but they both totally
my methodology,
work.
I'm the anti-Steve. He would vomit if he knew how I recorded bands. For sure, dude. I break all of his fucking rules, man. All of and that's that's why I love him. But and he's one of my all-time favorites. But there's certain things that he did that I do the wrong way.
The funny thing about Steve is if you work with him, I don't know if you get to meet him, but he was a super nice guy, totally supportive. Yeah. Everything you said about making a record would be his attitude too. And if you just walked in and you're like, this is how I do it, he'd just be like, groovy, let's do it.
I know, that's what I've heard. I never got the chance to meet him, but he's on, he's a Mount Rushmore kind of a figure, in terms of the indie recordist kind of niche, I guess. He's on there.
Well, dude, let the rock stars know, how can they find you? Maybe they're making a record and they just would love to get your help mixing even. How would you like people to follow you, reach out to you and connect?
I've got a website, seriousbusinessmusic.com. And then I guess Instagram's the best. I'm Serious Bizrec, Bizrec. That's my one that I'm using the most. So
awesome.
Serious Bizrec.
We'll have links in the show notes too, Rockstar, so you can just click through. Thank you for hanging with us. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. If you're listening to the audio only, come on over and check us out on YouTube and wherever video will be in the future, because we've now got great. You can see where Travis is joining us. You can see the tape machine. I didn't even ask you, man. Is that a JH24 or a JH16?
JH24. Yeah,
with the choir mod in it, so you can punch and all that.
There's a whole story about that one too, so we could save that for the next episode.
All right, we'll do that next one. And walls of records and stuff. So it's definitely, you definitely got to set up is where I'd like to go record. Thanks for joining us, man. And Rockstars, if you enjoyed this, hit that like button, hit subscribe so you get more of these videos from us. And please leave us a comment and let us know what you thought. If you enjoyed this, even just saying anything at all really actually helps this video get out there, helps more people know about Recording Studio Rockstars, but particularly this interview with Travis, that helps the video reach the next people that's exactly the kind of thing they need to hear for recording exactly the kind of record they want to do. So, thanks for watching. Travis, thanks for hanging with me, man. Really enjoy it. And thanks for joining us and taking out, carving out your morning to do this.
Totally. So much fun, man. I really appreciate it. I'm a fan.
I'm a fan of you, dude. I'll see you around the studio.
Cool. Thanks.
All right, man. Cheers. Thanks so much for listening to Recording Studio Rockstars. If you enjoyed the show and want to help make it better, then please share this episode with your friends on social media and leave a rating and review on iTunes to help the podcast reach more rock stars like yourself. You can click directly over to iTunes or go to rsrockstars.com/review for an easy explanation. And remember to hit the subscribe button to keep up with weekly episodes. And if you're ready to make your best record ever now, then head over to Recording Studio Rockstars Academy, where you can start with my free course at mixmasterbundle.com. Thanks so much for listening, and thanks for being a rock star. I'm Lid Shaw, and this is Recording Studio Rockstars. Now, go make great music. Recording Studio Rockstars would like to give a big thank you to our fantastic sponsors who make this episode possible. iZotope, Native Instruments, SAE Institute, Atom Audio, Spectra 1964, Grace Design, and Picker. And remember to take advantage of our special coupon code ROCK10 for 10% off any plugin purchase at iZotope.com or nativeinstruments.com. And don't forget, you can start mixing right now with my free course at mixmasterbundle.com. If you enjoyed Recording Studio Rockstars, please check out our sponsors using the links in the show notes below. These are all things I highly recommend for your studio. They're going to help you make your best record ever. Please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel as well, because it's a great way to help support this show. And I'd also like to thank our fantastic team here at Recording Studio Rockstars, Vlad Weselchenko, Daria Tupesis, and Max Young. Thanks so much for watching and listening, and we'll see you in the next episode. Cheers.